Go for it, Deb.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the Workfront Champion Office Hours. Please use the chat and say where you're from and say hello if you're a champion as well. I'm not expecting anyone from my side from London today. It's a heat wave, and I'm sure it's 6 o'clock in the evening. So I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of US Coast people joining today. Your hosts, myself, Deborah Lawrence. I work at IBM and have around 9 years experience with Workfront and also Adobe Champion. And my co-host is Victoria. If you want to say hi.
Oh, yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria. I'm from Accenture. I have about 7 years experience in Workfront. I currently do implementations and optimizations, and I'm from the Philadelphia suburbs.
Cool. All right. So just to whiz through the agenda, I'm going to take us through some house rules super quick and how to join our chapter. And our exciting topic of today is Ask Me Anything. Well, not absolutely anything. We don't want any question, but we do want your Workfront questions. But we have some thank you to those that have already sent in your questions, because that's what we're going to be doing today. So Victoria's going to be reading out some of your questions that you've already sent to us. And we've got some people to answer those questions. Any questions at the end, we'll do the Q&A, but it will finish on the hour. So please note this is being recorded. So if you don't want to be on YouTube on a public Adobe user group, a YouTube channel, just watch this video later. It's fine. All our recordings go to that link that we've pinned in the chat, and it's the YouTube. All of our recordings go there, so you can always catch up on it there. House rules, just to ensure we stay super user-focused in a safe space. So no self-promotion or pitching of any kind is permitted if we take you off mute. And when user cases are shared, please don't share this information without the original owner's consent. Stay connected with our chapter. So if you want to receive notifications of future webinars for the Adobe Office Hours Workfront, just click on that link. It's also in the chat, and click join. So if you don't join the chapter, you won't get the event notifications. So our panel today is Lee, Kimberly, and Olia. Maybe we want to go in turn and introduce yourselves. Lee, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Leanne. I am a Workfront champion, and I've been at AbbVie Pharmaceuticals for about 4 years now, out of Las Vegas, working remotely. But I've been a Workfront user since 2019, so a long time.
Kimberly, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Kimberly Ray. I'm with Schneider Electric, and I've been with the company for 18 years now. I'm based out of the Foxborough, Massachusetts office. And I have been using Workfront for 17 of the 18 years. We started with @Task, and then we moved over to Workfront, and then it kind of migrated to Adobe. So been using it for quite a while, and looking forward to answering some questions here today.
That might have been the longest tenure I've ever heard, Kimberly. So we'll have to see if anybody else beats that. Let us know in the chat if it's been more than 17 years. Go for it, Olia.
Hi, team. I'm Olia Kalina. I'm VP of Content Supply Chain Architecture at WorkFocus.io. I'm really excited to be here. I love Workfront. And in addition to that, I'm expert in Fusion, have hands-on architecture expertise and development, and I absolutely admire Workfront planning. So any questions that you will have about Workfront planning, Workfront, and Fusion, we'll be happy to answer that. I'm technical architect and love doing hands-on amazing things with Workfront. So happy to be here. In addition to all champions here, hi champions, and our champion community will be supporting us today with answering all the amazing questions.
Yeah, great. Okay, so first question.
All right, this one is for Kimberly. How do you approach cleaning up a highly complex inherited Workfront instance that didn't follow best practices, especially in a regulated environment where historical records and forms cannot be modified?
So as you all just heard, I've been using the tool for 17 years. So while it's not an inherited environment, I fully accept my own mess that I have created in here in some cases. And we're actually in the middle right now of a complete overhaul of Workfront optimization. So we have a WSA on our account here who comes in and works for a certain amount of time on our account. I think we estimate about 20 hours a month that she'll come in and help me with some admin work. And one of the biggest projects we've been doing here is the optimization. We've taken a step back and said, what does our structure look like today? And what is it going to look like? What should it look like? To kind of go through that. The first step has been looking at all of those who have access to create the mess that we've created. So we had over 200 users able to create some of these templates, and we are reining that back in. Because when I initially deployed the tool, we did not have group admins as an option within here. So we kind of released access out, and we're really reining it back in and kind of setting up the group admins to be able to say, you own the best practices, you own the process. And that way I kind of go from here of connecting the data and my information. We have been pulling cleanup reports. So there's actually some good templates in here around reports to show you projects not touched that you can close out, dashboards not looked at, looking at any templates that haven't been used in over a year. So we can start looking at flagging those for decommission to clean up what's available. And then phase 2 is going to be looking at the active templates that are left with our new group admins. So this is quite a bit of a process. We started this in April, but we're really looking at going group to group and saying you need to identify at most 3 users per group that are going to own your admin best practices and really taking the access back to them for creating templates, creating reports, creating dashboards, looking at the fields for that. As far as looking at the historical records and structures that cannot be modified, we are going to be archiving custom forms where they're not selectable in the future to clean them up in a new environment. So the admins will still be able to see, but we're going to be kind of pulling those back and hiding those from there using our access controls around group admins and around the groups and teams within here. So it's quite a heavy process. I own it. It's my own mess that I created, being the only system admin, allowing more users access to create than I should have. But we're really going to be putting it into more of a governance model here going forward. But the key is that inside the blueprints area, there is a bunch of report templates in there that can help you get the cleanup ready of what's not being used or what's open and what's going through here. And then, yeah, as Monique has said in the chat, we are really defining best practices. We're putting more governance around audits per year. We're going to be doing more audits in the fourth quarter to set us up for the next year. These templates haven't been touched. These reports haven't been looked at. These fields have not been used on any forms to be able to kind of clean that up a bit here. And then kind of set some regulations around who can create templates, who can create the reports, and giving them some more educational training here. It is a heavy lift, but it's breaking it down to your top priorities within here. And for us, we used our WSA to kind of help us gather all this information and go through what they see as best practices for setting up as well.
Cool. Thank you so much. Any other questions in the chat about this one? Okay, we'll move on to the next.
All right, this next one's for Olya. What's the best way to revisit and optimize large undocumented fusion scenarios? How do you approach analyzing a complex spiderweb setup with suboptimal outcomes? And when you do decide to break scenarios into smaller components? For example, how would you troubleshoot a situation where task selections are correctly pooled based on deliverables, but then ignored when applied to a large template?
Thank you for this question. Thank you, Victoria, for reading it. It's a lot of things here, but I love how in the chat you're recognizing which who owned and who asked these questions, right? Please continue commenting and adding additional maybe clarification to this. So starting with this question, I was actually thinking about that, how to best like translate years of knowledge of fusion development, right, and how to best approach solving the complex scenario. I think I have a screenshot here in
this one.
Yes. So this is one of the like thinking process, how I would be approaching the complex scenario, right? So when you have scenario, maybe that's not that complex that you had in mind, but overall, first of all, I would recommend to understand what your scenario or your chain of scenario or like kind of subset of scenario that involve in this process actually all about, right? Because when you like look into this, if you not zooming in on detail, it's probably hard to know what it's doing. But if you start looking into like what modules are there, what systems are involved, maybe your developer, even if they not provided you with like additional and robust documentation, you might be able to see those descriptions, what these modules are doing, right? I would recommend to look into those green modules that are routing different roads for you, so you can understand the path that scenario like walking you through, right? And start mapping out, even like take screenshot from your scenario and start mapping out those descriptions, those like modules, those packages that will help you to eliminate like noise or maybe what's unnecessary for this particular one, and what to focus on, right? So that you can troubleshoot exact modules, exact where to look into. I see Deb is also agreed with me, right? It's like
yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, so that's really helped me not only to understand for myself, also to communicate with developers, right? And you have like support, and someone can, even during those calls, right? If you bring like large scenario that you don't know how to approach, it will be hard. But if you know the places there to look, it will help you to even communicate and bring everyone on the same page, right? Then start marking up, right? What I illustrated here, that you can say, okay, this part is responsible for creation of portfolio, this part of creation of like flow, right? And then start zooming into like exact particular module. You can also take the screenshot from the settings of the modules, right? And start looking into, okay, how scenarios are organized. But that's all about when you kind of looking and trying to understand what if it's like mistake happen and how to approach that. Of course, you have a lot of tools inside of Fusion that you can see during this analysis. You can review scenario run, you can review all this like when it's happened, what's happened, you can review logs and troubleshoot in this way. My recommendation would be follow best practices in terms of error handling. So in this case, your error can be recorded and you can actually track those errors as you're moving forward, right? If it's error happening all the time, the best way would be either have notification happening from your Fusion scenario directly coming into Workfront, let's say into update area, or it can send email to particular users. If you're in the like next level of maturity, you might want to have data store that's recording all your errors inside of Fusion, and then you can like kind of load all these errors and analyze what's happening, why that's not happening, right? So this will allow you to spend less time on troubleshooting, but more on actually like fixing the error if there's a rise, and this error can be analyzed in like depending who is responsible for what part of your project. But also I would recommend to actually rethink how this scenario is designed, because if we come back on the previous slide when we had the question, right? Second part of the question, describe like particular situation, how to troubleshoot scenario with the task and template. Then I see the word template, that's immediately bringing me into consideration how this scenario should be designed best to avoid those situations, right? And I will explain you best practices that I learned during the years of Fusion development hands-on, actually, that you can have for template mapping, different models, how you actually can map templates, especially if it's like complex template, right? So I would say first maturity level would be if you embedding your template mapping inside of Fusion module. So basically you kind of having the maybe if then logic, if something happened, do this, assign this template, if user selected this particular field, create this, and so on. So in this case, you like really heavily dependent on what Fusion developer plays inside of the Fusion, right? And all the like technicality only inside of scenario. So hard to troubleshoot, hard to manage, maintain, and make changes. Next level, I would recommend to introduce data store. Then in data store, you would have all the mapping parameters. You might have 2, 3 different, maybe more different column based on your template mapping logic. Still require Fusion developer to make changes, make update, like look into like this different logic. But you will be able to load the data store information and actually provide it to your business users. So they will be able to kind of like relate what template needs to be mapped to which particular situation. And if your template breaking down in some like kind of logical way, it will be easier to make changes and like see what exactly happening with the template mapping and why one part of getting assigned and not. So you have the same logic, so you will not have the situation that large template, some part not getting assigned, because following the same logic, you will get the same result. But one more level of maturity I would introduce, when you can add your template mapping logic actually in Workfront project. So that allow your business user actually be responsible for this template mapping. So you would not need to have Fusion developer to embed all the logic inside of Fusion and then try to have this conversation regarding how template mapping should happen, what should be added, and so on. So in this case, having your project set up like container, and the task represent those templates, and fields, custom fields can represent mapping logic. Your Fusion scenario can read this project settings and apply correct template. So in this case, again, business users will be responsible to, based on which criteria to map this project, map this template, and you will have good kind of like governance criteria, right? And easy to troubleshoot, easy to understand what's happened. So I hope I gave you a lot of different ideas how to approach that. Of course, we can continue more details looking into exact scenario, like what exactly happening, and help you to troubleshoot, but it probably will not be happening during this call. Try to apply this tips that we provided to you, and we'll be happy to continue conversation if you need any particular support with this particular scenario. Thank you so much. And I see a couple of comments in the chat if someone wants to comment.
Yeah, I'm going to bring a couple comments in the chat just because it won't surface in the recording. There were a couple notes that you can actually take a Fusion JSON file and put it in any AI tool that your company is allowed to use. So as long as you're allowed to share company data in a set AI tool, you can pull the JSON file out, and then AI can create the documentation for you for your Fusion scenarios. So fun fact of the day.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Olya. Let's go to the next question. All right. This is for Kimberly.
In a proof stage, oops, sorry. So the question is, in a proof stage with multiple reviewers and approvers, where only one final decision is required, how can we build a report that clearly shows who participated in the review without needing to open each proof?
So we have a document version report set up in the system, and we have it listed on the main menu of the users as they log in. And one of the columns on there is proof approvers, and it lists out all of the users that are on there as an approver and then their status within here. So I'm going to drop, that's the text mode for that column. But again, it's a document version report, and then I'm going to put it into the chat here. And what this looks like is it'll list the approver name, and then it'll list their status. So I can see here, I can't share the names and how it looks here just from a data privacy, but I can see user 1, it says pending, and user 2, it says changes required. so I can see that it was both on here for me. So we use that for our users for this. And I threw it into the chat here as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Kimberly. All right. Oh, there was a good question on this note that just came through. Do you have any tips to show reviewers only? I've tried to build one for reviewers, but was not successful.
I can take a look and provide this after and look through and see what I have for them on here. But I believe I have a view set up for items that I am a reviewer on here, but it's a specific filter that we had to do. So let me look for that here.
Perfect. All right, next slide, Deborah. All right, this is for Leanne. What are your best practices for onboarding new users who are not project managers and won't be using Workfront as deeply? How do you make adoption easier for occasional or lightweight users?
Yeah, I'm glad you got that. This question got asked because this is something we've been working through and trying to figure out on our own. And the answer is they just need their own training, whatever that looks like. So you can give them pieces of the documentation if you have a playbook or something. We are in the process of digitizing a lot of our trainings so that we can build different journeys for different users. So somebody who's using Workfront end to end is going to go through the entire training, and they'll have dedicated modules to help them with each topic. But someone who's a light user, they would have a dedicated module just for their piece of it, or maybe it's just one of the pieces that somebody else is going through that's just relevant to them. So just trying to meet them where they're at and give them the most simple information so that they can figure out how to use Workfront for their needs.
All right, thank you. Any other questions at this point in time, or I'm going to go for the next question.
Next slide.
Okay. There we go.
All right, this one's for Olya. How do you manage permissions within Workfront planning to balance control and usability?
Thank you for these questions. We are opening up our planning discussion, right? And I've been preparing for these questions in advance as you guys submitted it early. So I have a couple of screenshots that we can start showing you.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about permission, there is different types of permission you can think about, right? So first is like workspace level. So your users tied in Workfront planning as right now, as we're not talking about standalone version, tied to Workfront version, right? So that whatever settings you have in Workfront, your user will be having the same groups and companies and teams inside of planning as well. So you definitely can create and use the same best practices that you have in Workfront. You can create group, you can create roles, teams, and share the workspaces with those users so they can continue using best practices that you apply in Workfront. That's on workspace level, right? But we can also talk about other, you can probably go, yeah, right here. You can, we can also talk about other type of permission. For example, you can share the record types that can be accessible for these users, either inside of your planning environment in this particular workspace, or those record type can be shared across different workspaces, right? And you can see here two features on the backend of this particular record type that you can go in settings and see them. So first one is telling you that you can share this record type globally. That means the other workspaces will be able to edit this record type in this workspace, and you can specify who exactly can do that, this particular user, or again, job roles or companies. So that's mean that anything that they will be added in this particular record type will be shown in the global record type, right? So that's mean this people who would like to see, let's say, all the data across the organization will be able to just look in the global workspace and see this data. But all the other child workspaces will be able to submit the data in the same format using the same briefs, right? The same request to this particular record type, and it will be roll up using this feature. Be aware that this feature require like this particular package that goes with planning. So if you would like to use this feature, just to check on your settings and ensure that you have access to this. But the second one, connectable record type, I believe available for any instances. So in this case, what you will be able to do to share your global taxonomy. So if you're using this like parent-child structure for your different workspaces, and you capturing your taxonomy in global workspace, in this case, you can share the particular taxonomical record type, and it can be used across other workspaces. So you're referring to the same data and don't need to duplicate like taxonomy across workspaces. So those two features really important. And when you ask about permission, I was thinking probably good to add also not only like user teams permission, but also record type permission, so that you can control like access, not necessarily adding everyone to global workspace and then just limit the visibility of what your user needs to see and still be successful in their setup. But there are also a couple of more different types of permissions. So if we can go in the next slide, that will help us to see, yes, view level. So again, you not necessarily need to share with your users only like default view as a table view, right? You can create special view that you can limit number of different fields that your user can see, or even like structure. And it can be shared in different ways. So you can go on the left side, you can see illustration here, a screenshot from like timeline table view. There is like 3 dots there, and you can click on this, and this share a timeline or share a table window will pop up. And you also can see you can share through the whole workspace, so everyone in workspace can view. So in this case, you will not need to go by each individual view and kind of reshare that with particular users. So if you would like it to be accessible, but in the same time, you can limit again with the same team roles and group who can see the details. You also have interesting feature available like public sharing. So in this case, you need to have like you can create this public link and have limit per date till what time that's till what period of time this feature will be available. So it'll help you also to manage who can see what information, and also how you can share. One way is just from this drop down timeline and table, and the other way on the right side you can see share a button. That's kind of like new addition, and here you can immediately like click into the share, and current view or current record type will be shared, and you can quickly share like copy link and share it with your users as well. And newest edition, then on the next slide, this is really recently what was released, record level sharing. So with this feature, you will be able to share the particular record in your record type. Again, it's very new, it's still kind of getting processed, and you can experiment with this. But here you will be able to also use inherited permission and share with particular user. Let's say even they are added to your record type, will be able to see only this record that's shared with them, and will be able to manage or modify them. So I hope I gave you like quick overview of different settings, but if you have additional questions, please share them into the chat. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Yes, you taught me a few things, and I've been using that view sharing ever since we spoke for one of my companies. So thank you for that. Next question. And to you again.
Great, continuing planning conversation. Yes. So I think here is a really good question in terms of recommendation effectively connecting planning to Workfront. So I would share a couple of like thinking process, how you can approach this, how to connect the tool, So Workfront is traditional, have our custom form and custom fields, right? And custom form and custom fields like live in Workfront. When you set up your planning environment, you can one-off take your fields that you have in Workfront and actually transfer them as is to planning. But second you done it, connection is like broken, and you only have fields that's like belongs to planning in planning. And of course you can set up new fields or even load all your information from Excel to planning and have those fields set up. So that said, you have two set of fields in Workfront, you have custom fields that belongs to custom form and can be attached to the object. In planning environment and planning workspaces, you have record type and fields that belongs to planning. It's done by design, and in some cases, because we have so many different Adobe products, right, and you're trying to connect them in different ways, it's also important to see like what's coming into roadmap and what integration and connections will be developed and released by Adobe teams, right? So again, thinking about future, you might think that you would need to use planning fields because a lot of innovation coming with like intake starting from planning, right? And then you will be able to connect with Frame.io, you will be able to connect with IM assets and so on and so forth from planning, and all use AI and everything else from like this part. But at the same time, you will say, oh, we have so much already done on our Workfront and custom forms, so should we stop doing what we're doing? Absolutely not. So two types of connection I would want to propose to you to think, right? One connection is when you natively connect your planning environment with Workfront environment using the connected fields, and you will be able to view planning data, planning brief, everything that's in planning in your Workfront environment. So this native connection available for portfolio, program, and project, and you will be able to, like, if people just need to read and review information, review briefs, that's available in Workfront, and they can collaborate on those briefs, and they can make changes and make edits inside of Workfront, and it's all nicely bi-directionally translate to planning. So if you're looking for connection just to view information, collaborate on information, record information between planning and Workfront, use native capabilities that allow this connection to happen. You can also have this native automation setup. They are very limited in terms of like what you can do, what type of template you can assign, and what you can create. Typically, we require a lot more, like setting up project owner and setting up like additional fields, maybe some variation of templates and so on. But for just to get started, if you're starting with planning, you can use this native automation that allow you by either pressing the button or choosing the button click, or just choosing the field selection, and based on field selection map your template and create project in Workfront, right? So that's natively, those two will be connected. Of course, if you would like to report on planning information, and if you say how I would leverage report, I would recommend explore Canvas dashboards. It's still in beta, but it's provide great capability for reporting on all planning data, including Workfront data as well. So there is some limitation. You still can't use like text mode on Canvas dashboard and some other things, but you will be able to report nicely on all planning data and basic Workfront data what's available. So reporting issue can be solved without need to kind of remap those fields between Workfront, right? But of course, if you would like to leverage our traditional reporting in Workfront, and you maybe those fields let's say if you use native connector with IAM, and you still need fields to be like populated in Workfront, I would recommend to actually review which field you need, which you don't need, because it might think that you might think that you need all 100 fields that you have on custom form, but you might don't need all of them. And then in this case, if you really require that 5 or 10 or 20 fields that it's really needed for you to be transferred from planning to Workfront, set up Fusion connection between those fields and just bring them in the form. But this can be like really assessed if it's needed, because again, if we're talking about future, focus on planning fields and planning intake and those beautiful briefs that's available using the native capability Canvas dashboard and reporting. So I hope I answered the effective connecting planning to Workfront, but
just a question, the original request object type there. I remember that used to say request before as like the object type request, but original request, is that an original request going into linking into the planning record? Does that have to exist first then?
Yes, that's a great question. So we original request is this exact planning request that we use in planning form, right? So just not to confuse with like, let's say Workfront request. Workfront request not mapped to planning record. So we're talking about if you submitted your request form that originated in planning right? And you have request form that exposes in the request area. This is the request we're talking about.
Yeah, so you wouldn't necessarily go from planning to a new request. It would be, yeah, okay, got it. Thank you. Over to you again.
Oh wow, I have one more plugin. I think it's
I think that's the same.
effectively connected plugin. I believe this.
Yeah.
This
You might have had that twice in the deck.
yes.
We've had it twice.
All right,
There we go.
perfect. So this is a group conversation. So what's one useful tip or trick you've learned that others could immediately apply in their Workfront environment? I'll throw it over to Leanne first. And Deborah, I think she has a slide for this one too.
Yeah, I built a quick slide on this tip. So this is something that popped up in our champions chat after a call. And this is just a really quick hit of something that you can implement in less than 5 or 10 minutes into your instance today. We at AbbVie connect into Viva. That's how our process flows. And you can put a custom field at the top of your project. And you can control this by each person's layout template. So that's what the screenshots are, just showing you how it looks to implement it and then what it looks like when you're there. So start thinking about which field you have in your instance that people are a few clicks away that you could then reposition to be right on the top of your project. So again, for us, it's the Viva project number. For you, it might be a certain date that you're trying to do or a different reference number. This is a new feature that we just found out about, and it's just been really helpful for our users to understand where their information is.
I love that you can customize the headers now. I wish it was there in many past lives.
Yes.
All right, over to you, Kimberly.
So I think being the primary system admin, the best piece of advice I was given very, very early in the beginning is I have a request queue. So anything anybody asks of me, any user count changes, any changes to fields, questions, reports, any troubleshooting that they need, everybody, because I get so many different Teams messages or emails or anything like that. Sure, I can absolutely do that. Please put in a request so it goes into one spot, and then I can kind of prioritize that and see. I also have that Workfront system admin that is in our account, so I can do a quick triage and then I can reassign over to her to kind of execute. And as we move forward with the group admins, I will be reassigning some stuff to them to complete. But if you don't have a technical support queue for your Workfront work to come in, and you're getting it all over the place, that it's very difficult to prioritize and kind of show where work is coming. It is so critical. And I think mine's been open since 2011. It's evolved a little bit with the topics in there, but custom reporting, somebody asks me how to do something or change a filter, sure, enter a ticket for me so I don't forget what I'm doing and I don't lose it. Any changes to the projects, they then get validated. And if it's larger than 1 or 2 fields, it becomes a full project plan. And a full rework of a project plan within here. But drink the Kool-Aid, use the tool, get everything in here, and get it in there so you can show your work as well. My typical turnaround time for a custom report, we try to provide them within 3 to 5 business days. It really depends on when it comes in and the complexity. Again, the custom reporting, we're trying to hand off to our group admins to own that and clean up. We have an embarrassingly large number of reports in here that I think we said our last look was 44% haven't been looked at in the last calendar year. So I am going through and cleaning those up so that we can make sure that the custom reports that are in there, people can search them a little bit easier, and then maybe just some additional training on changing their filters within here. But again, everything has to come in through the request queue, or I can't do it. I can't work on it. If it's not in Workfront, it doesn't exist.
We need the sticker. One other note there too, the request queue is so important. And I've also found in my Workfront system admin days, it also helps you build the case if you want additional support. So if you're getting flooded with a ton of requests, a ton of work, and you can show on screen how many requests you're getting, how much bandwidth it's taking, it helps you build the case to hire more people to support you.
100%.
All right, Olia, over to you. What's your tip or trick?
Such amazing conversation. I can't let to step in and add to what Kimberly and you, Victoria, shared, because those items also important for you if you set up like leadership review as well. So it will help you to kind of prioritize roadmap as well, depending like if it's just like support queue, you get in like day-to-day items, but sometimes in the support queue, you can surface also like idea or larger roadmap items. Let's say if you notice that all users complaining on something, or they need like something you probably would need to develop using Fusion or using like some other advanced feature, and like Victoria said, may need more support, not only like admin. So again, have those reviews and group the support items that's coming in, so it will help you to build your roadmap as well. So that's kind of like additional tips to what the team shared. But my personal tip, I created even this nice screenshot using AI. Nowadays, everybody uses AI, right? But I actually map out my mockup and screenshots from Workfront first, and then ask AI to prettify that, so you can see the how that might look like backwards. So what is you can see here on this screen, I propose to you like really treat your each custom field with a purpose, right? So to really understanding and map out why you need this custom field, why you're asking your team members to fill it in, it will help you to build this enterprise metadata layer, enterprise taxonomy later on, if you're on the beginning of the journey or you just kind of going through this journey, because it's just so important for AI era, right? So if you're talking about applying AI agent, or like even we're talking about next stage and evolution going to agentic marketing, that's really important to understand your data, clean your data, and start like kind of developing the case that you can open up it for more AI help with the agent and with all the different features that's coming in. So really review your custom fields and ask yourself, is it each field has purpose? Do you know this purpose? Is it documented somewhere? And what we actually need. You can leverage a lot of tools. You can leverage Fusion to analyze just how you actually using your fields, and are they getting filled in, or they just here as it is, right? You can use native reporting capabilities. You can use just your judgment and conversation with your end users or your business stakeholders who are requesting this data to be inside. So just understanding and start this work now. You will be thankful for you later that you can apply more modern tools, and that will help you to do your work even faster and efficiently. So that's my tip for today. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, and thanks to everyone. That was the last question.
There's a couple questions in the chat. I think we will just service them really quickly, just for anyone who isn't joining us live. There was a really good one, and any champion feel free to add on here because Monique, you had a great answer. Do users search for reports? We are struggling with directing folks to reports, which we need them to use to execute a lot of their work. I'll throw it over to you, Monique, just because you answered really well in the chat, if you're around.
I'm still here. I was trying to answer another question, but yeah, we can switch. So yeah, what I basically said in the chat, and I'll kind of go in a little bit more detail, is back to like what Kimberly was saying in the beginning. You want to make sure that you have that clean environment, you know, where you're not just sharing anything and everything with everyone, but instead that individual maybe only has like 50 reports, which is probably a large number, but coming from an environment that had, 4,000 reports, 50 isn't that many. But make sure that all of the reports are relevant to them, either for their role, for their team, for their group, what have you, instead of just being like, maybe they might want to know what's going on with this team, so I'm going to share it with them as well, right? Keep that number small, and then also incorporate it in your training. So show people how to search for reports. I create a lot of reports with prompts, and that allows people to find things a lot faster than if you were to just go up to the search bar and click, report, because you kind of have to know the name. Whereas if it's a prompt, you can give a couple more things in there. Maybe it was like last viewed by you in the last, week or whatever. That kind of just helps people find it. But yeah, just keep the clutter down, and then also just share responsibly.
Awesome. Thank you, Monique. Any other champions have any tips or tricks for reporting? Just seems to be a hot topic in the chat, so we'll open the floor here. Or any of our panelists?
I'm just, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is Craig Peterson. I've just been listening in. I added one comment in there, but I get a lot of times someone's looking for a certain data point in Workfront. And then when I ask, well, is it part of your process? Do you already capture this data? And they're like, no, but we need all this information for the last 6 months. Like, well, it just goes back to that old adage. If you're not putting it in, I can't get it out of Workfront. So, one thing that I would try to talk to people when they're mapping out their processes or a report or dashboard, I always ask them, what is their end goal? What is their result they're looking for? So then I can back into what they need to do in Workfront in order to accomplish that at the end of the day. So it really helps to at least, have the person be very clear in what they're looking for and not even necessarily speak the Workfront language. Just tell me what you want, and then I'll let you know how we can do it.
Anything to add, Kimberly?
That's exactly what I was adding, and I was typing in the chat to reply. I've been burned multiple times early on of needing 6 months of data, and I was like, well, you didn't tell me that you needed that report, so we are not capturing that field. So we can add it in, but come back to me in 6 months. So that is very key in our deployments now. We actually have a file they fill in for deployment, and one of the tabs is what reports are you expecting to be able to pull in here, and what are your KPIs that you need to be measuring and pulling, and the frequency, so that we make sure that when they say that data point is being captured on the back end. So yeah, that's very key.
Totally agree. Reports first is usually the best way to go into Workfront.
I can add to this conversation as well regarding the reporting. I love with each implementation to roll out also like management dashboards that allow you to capture all links from all important items, right? If you're talking particularly in report, you can also create a dashboard and report on reports and report on dashboards. So that will allow you to have those clickable links, or maybe like some even samples what those reports are, maybe charts and graphs. So users will be able like visually see what's available. This dashboards can be pinned in their instance or in the layout template, right? To propose them to have like kind of a starting point all the time. And you can surface adding additional report that's been developed, because just using the search ability, it will be hard for user to like navigate and understand the naming convention and all that. So having this dashboard will be really helpful.
Awesome. Totally with you on reports of reports in a dashboard. There's another question in chat from Prasanna. Have any of you used AI Assistant in Workfront? What are your experiences?
I can start with this as well. Yes, an early day then AI Assistant was released. I was super excited about text mod, like really ask the formula. And basically every month I was coming back and see how it's improved. So early it was really hard to use, but the last week I've been in Adobe office in San Francisco, and we were discussing the AI feature, including the AI assistants. And the team assured us that they develop and release new capabilities that allow actually you to ask the formulas, please try AI assistant now. Maybe that will help you to really develop your formula faster if you would like to use text mode for reporting, as we just touch it. I personally experience using AI assistant with planning as well. So in planning, you can actually load your data, your briefs, and it will help you to bring this data to planning, distribute this through the record types, create those nice, beautiful briefs based on your email snippets, or based on like if you're discussing something in email, or even some notes, if you use notes or any kind of recording that you have transcript from your discussion meetings with the teams. So you can drop this in the chat in the assistant, and it will allow you to create those briefs and capture the information, distribute them across fields that you have in planning. I also experiment with creation of the formula with using AI assistant in planning. It's interesting that AI assistant is like contextual. So depending if you're in Workfront, opening AI assistant, you will get help with Workfront items, right? If you're in planning, you can ask all planning questions and it will be answered. It's also helping with design the formula for planning as well. So a lot of time you can create really robust calculation there. So ask those questions and try new feature that's very valuable, and the AI system become even more powerful than earlier.
Awesome. Getting some knowledge hot off the press there from Olia's time in San Francisco. All right, next question from Brittany. Can you merge project and task reports into one? I've noticed that some task data can't be pulled into project reports and vice versa, even when I use text mode. I put a question in the chat back to you, Brittany. I'm not sure if you're trying to pull it with collections, and if it's not possible with that. Collections, too, for anybody that doesn't know, is when you have a project report and you want to see like task or document, something that's under that project hierarchy data in that project report. So you can use collections to say, all right, what's the milestone task that's currently up in this project? Or I could see all the documents that have been added to the project. It allows you to resort the hierarchy in things that you traditionally aren't able to report on with out-of-the-box capabilities. I'll post a link to that in the chat, though. All right. Any other questions, and while we wait for a few more questions here, anybody else have any other thoughts they'd like to share about anything?
Anything else?
Sounds good. Feel free to pop a few more questions in the chat if you have any.
Three, two, one.
I know, it feels we need some Jeopardy music. All right, Gabriella's first. What are the best ways to measure adoption?
I can take this one because it's something we deal with every day too. We use a two-prong approach. Like I'm running reports to see adoption metrics. You know, are users using proof? How long is it taking them to get through an end-to-end process? How long are requests sitting there before they're picked up? So I'm looking at that, at the data and the metrics. Data is my love language, so that's how I love to communicate. But I also need to check in with my actual users and ask them, how's it going? Because I have metrics that show we're faster because of Workfront, but sometimes when I talk to my marketers, they don't feel that way. So it's also, you know, how are they feeling versus what the data says, and just trying to understand what's happening in both things and then building the story from there.
Mm-hmm. It looks like Kelly just chimed in that there's a skill exchange session on adoption. Oh, cool. For anyone who doesn't know, I think the skill exchange is going to be happening in the August timeframe.
And Kelly also mentioned surveys, which I was like literally just about to mention.
Go for it.
Yeah, so doing a survey is a really good idea to sort of measure the before you're rolling out work, to get everyone's score on how they're currently working now, what's working, what's not, score 1 to 10 or whatever, and then you measure that again, like 6 months into using Workfront, a year into Workfront, and then you've got some real stats to show, hey, this is actually improved, and you can really show value of Workfront in a really good way using surveys. And there's free tools out there you can use, SurveyMonkey and stuff like that. So yeah,
perfect. All right, doesn't look like we've had any other questions come through, so we can kind of wrap up here. But before we do, want to note that there is going to be a survey sent after this call. And this call will have the recording posted in about a day or two on our YouTube page. which can be found on the champion site that you registered with. So survey, let us know what you thought of this session. We are looking for topics for the next couple of months here too. So please feel free to put any ideas you have into the survey so we know what we should do next. All right. Thank you everyone for joining, and thanks to our panelists here and other champions who joined.
Cheers.
Bye everyone.
Bye-bye.